and gentlemen, boys and girls, children of all ages, welcome to Robert Sports Show. I'm your host, Robert. Alright, NCAA Week 1 is upon us. It's kind of a Week 1A, Week 1B, Week 0, some people are calling it. What I'm doing this year, if you've checked out the previous videos on the Robert Sports Show, is there's 35 teams that I'm going to do. So whatever they play, so they play each other, then I got less, but the most I'll have is 35. They all play different teams. So I went through and picked 3 from each conference. And then I did 2 other ones. So there's 2 conferences, has 4, and then 3 from each conference. Labor Day week will be week 2, and then week 1 of the NFL. So we're going to get kind of week, like I said, week 0, week 1, all here in one. First matchup, we have the Utah State Aggies versus the 11th ranked Michigan State Spartans. The Aggies were 6-7 overall last year, 4-4 in the Mountain West. The Spartans were 10-3 overall, 7-2 in the Big Ten. Michigan State is favored by 22.5. I actually have them winning it. I have to cover the 22.5, and I'm taking under on the 50.5. Next, we have the Army Black Knights versus the Duke Blue Devils. The Black Knights were 10-3 last year. As an independent, the Blue Devils were 7-6 and 3-5 in the ACC. Duke is actually favored by 13.5 at home. I'm picking the Black Knights to win. I'm giving them the 13.5 and have them cover. I'm taking under on the 47.5 overall. Next, we have out of the Conference USA, the Western Kentucky Hilltoppers, who were 6-7, 4-4 in conference, versus the 4th ranked. Out of the Big Ten, the Wisconsin Badgers, 13-1 last year, 9-0 in conference. If it wasn't for that Big Ten championship game loss, Wisconsin would have been part of the Final Four playoff teams last year. I just don't. You have a one-loss Wisconsin, stay home, non-conference champion. And you had a one-loss Georgia, who lost the national champion, the ACC title game, go in the playoffs. So either they need to expand the playoffs or do something. I do have Wisconsin winning this. They're favored by 34.5. I'm actually going to have Western Kentucky cover that 34.5. I'm taking under on the 51. Next, we have the San Diego State Aztecs versus the 13th ranked Stanford Cardinal. Aztecs 10-3 overall last year, 6-2 in the Mountain West. Cardinal 9-5 last year, 7-2 in the Pac-12. Picking the Cardinal to win, Stanford Cardinal to win. Stanford's favored by 14.5. I'm having San Diego State cover that, and then I'm having under on the 50 overall points. Next, I got the 23rd ranked Texas Longhorns out of the Big 12, 7-6 last year, 5-4 in conference. Versus Big Ten's Maryland Terrapins, 4-8 last year, 2-7 in conference. Longhorns favored by 13, got them winning, covering, and over on the 56.5. Next, we have a Pac-12 versus the Big Ten matchup. We have the Oregon State Beavers, 1-11 overall, 0-9 in conference, versus the Ohio State Buckeyes, 8-1 in the Big Ten, 12-2 overall. They faced 3 games without Urban Meyer. Really don't think it's going to hurt him. I think the coaching staff is good enough to muddle through 3 games without Urban Meyer. And you can't tell me he's not going to be on somebody's cell phone. Come on. He can't be on the sideline. Really? He going to be on the cell phone. He going to be texting someone. Ohio State is favored by 36.5. This is one of those foot to the throat kind of we're proving a point game. I got obviously Ohio State winning. They'll cover the 36.5. I'm taking over on the 44. This is the perfect game for Ohio State. They're going to go out and they're going to light up the scoreboard. Next, we have the Florida Atlantic Owls versus 7th ranked Oklahoma Sooners. The Owls were 8-0 in Conference USA last year, 11-3 overall, while the Sooners 8-1 in the Big 12, 12-2 overall. Games like this and other top games that the Sooners have, they have to win. So yeah, if the Sooners have any hope of making that 14 playoff, they have to win games like this. they have to either have 1 loss or 0 loss. Luckily this year there is a Big 12 championship game that will help, but it also could hurt. They could lose that and have 2 losses and be going home. Next we have the Furman Paladins versus the second-ranked Clemson Tigers. FCS Southern Conference team versus the ACC champions, 12-2 overall, 8-1 in conference. No line on this one, just straight up win by the Clemson Tigers. Next, we have the FCC Mid-Eastern Atlantic team of the Howard Bison versus the Ohio Bobcats, the 9-4 in the overall, 5-3 in the MAC. I got the Bobcats winning. Next, we have the Northern Illinois Huskies versus the Iowa Hawkeyes. Northern Illinois out of the MAC, 6-2 in conference last year, 8-5 overall. The Hawkeyes were 4-0 versus non-conference teams last year. In the season, 8-5. Unfortunately, they were 4-5 in the Big Ten. Iowa's favored by 10. I got them winning. I am going to have Northern Illinois cover the 10, and then I got Iowa and taking over on the 48. Next up, the 17th ranked West Virginia Mountaineers out of the Big 12, 6-7-6 overall, 5-4 in conference, versus the Tennessee Volunteers, 4-8 overall, 0-8 in the SEC. Once again, 4-0 versus non-conference teams last year. Don't think they're going to do that this year. I'm actually taking the West Virginia Mountaineers to beat up on the Tennessee Volunteers. Giving the 10 points to West Virginia. They'll cover that. I'm taking under on the 10, or under on the 61.5, excuse me. Next, this is a very interesting matchup. This could determine either one of these two teams making the playoffs or not making the playoffs. Out of the Pac-12, we have the Washington Huskies, 10-3 overall, 6-2 in conference, ranked number 6 in the nation right now, versus the number 9 team, the Auburn Tigers, 7-1 in the SEC, 10-4 overall. These are two teams that I spotlighted in the my playoff predictions. Auburn has to face Georgia and Alabama. They got to beat a team like Washington first, and then go beat up on the big boys. If they can't win the SEC, which I don't know if they can, they're going to have almost be undefeated and have 1 loss to a Georgia or to a Alabama in order to even sniff the playoffs. Pac-12, I don't think they're getting anybody in unless they got 1 loss, if not undefeated. We've already seen the championship committee doesn't care about conference titles. They're wanting it for what they think the best teams are. I am picking Washington to win this. I could be wrong. Auburn's actually favored by 2.5. I'm giving the 2.5 to Washington. I got them covering the 2.5, taking over on the 48.5. This is one of the games. There's only a couple of games here in week 1 that are just must-watch games. This is one of them. This has not only ramifications on this week, this has playoff ramifications on it in week 1. So yeah, I'm taking the Huskies to beat the Tigers. Tiger fans, I'm sorry. It's just how I feel. I could be wrong. I could be completely wrong. Come week 2, be like, yes, we have the 1-0 Auburn Tigers versus the 0-1 Washington Huskies. I could be completely wrong on this, but I could be right also. Next, we have the Austin Peay Governors versus the 3rd-ranked Georgia Bulldogs. Bulldogs are going to blow this out. They were 13-2 overall last year, 7-1 in the SEC. Next, we have the Appalachian State Mountaineers versus the 10th-ranked Penn State Nittany Lions. The Mountaineers are 7-1 in Sun Belt last year, 9-4 overall, while the Penn State Nittany Lions were 11-2 overall, 6-2 in the Big Ten. Excuse me, they're 5-0 non-conference. Penn State favored by 23.5. I got them winning, covering, and over on the 54. Next, we have the BYU Cougars versus the Arizona Wildcats. BYU 4-9, they're an independent team. While the Wildcats were 5-4 in the Pac-12, 7-6 overall. Wildcats favored by 11.5, winning, covering, under on the 16.5. Next, out of the Mountain West versus Pac-12, UNLV running Rebels versus the 15th ranked USC Trojans. Trojans were 8-1 in Pac-12 last year, 11-3 overall. Again, one of those Pac-12 teams, one loss, either going to be undefeated or one loss only for the committee to even look at you. US State favored by 25.5. I got them winning. I got UNLV covering the 25.5, and I'm taking under on the 62.5. Next, we have the 22nd ranked Boise State Broncos versus the Troy Trojans. Boise State 11-3 in the Mountain West, 11-3 overall, 7-1 in the Mountain West. Trojans 7-1 in the Sun Belt, 11-2 overall. Boise State favored by 10.5. I got them winning, covering, and under on the 50. Next, we have the Southeast Missouri State Redhawks versus the Arkansas State Red Wolves. FCS versus FBS. More times than not, the FBS team wins. I got Arkansas State winning. Next, we have the Virginia Military Cadets versus the Toledo Rockets. Toledo was 11-3 overall last year, 7-1 in the MAC. I got them winning. The Mercer Bears versus the Memphis Tigers. Memphis was 10-3, 7-1 in the American Conference. Facing the FCS Southern League team, Memphis wins. Next, we have the Louisiana Tech Bulldogs versus the South Alabama Jaguars. Conference USA versus Sun Belt. The Bulldogs were 7-6 overall, 4-4 in conference, while the Jags were 4-8 overall, 3-5 in conference. The Bulldogs favored by 11. Got them winning, covering, and over on the 51. Another game to watch, as I was talking about the Auburn-Washington game. The 14th ranked Michigan Wolverines versus the 12th ranked Notre Dame Fighting Irish. Michigan last year 8-5 overall, 5-4 in the Big Ten. Notre Dame, they are an independent team. They were 10-3 overall last year. They did play 5 ACC teams. I know in basketball they're part of the ACC. They were 4-1 versus those ACC teams last year. Michigan is favored by 1.5. This is another game to watch because Notre Dame, being an independent, they're almost going to have to be undefeated even to have the committee to even have an inkling to put them in the playoffs. So they need to beat up on teams like a Michigan handily, maybe by a touchdown more, if not 2 touchdowns, to show the committee, hey, you know what, we are a powerhouse here. Michigan, a lot of competition in that Big Ten. They're probably the 3rd or 4th best Big Ten team. Michigan is favored by 1.5 on the road here. This is obviously a big rival. So I am picking the Fighting Irish to win. I am giving them the 1.5. They will cover that. And I'm taking over on the 48. And next, we have the SMU Mustangs versus the North Texas Mean Green. American versus Conference USA. Mean Green favored by 3.5, winning, covering, and under on the 71. Stephen F. Austin Lumberjacks versus the 18th ranked Mississippi State Bulldogs. Got the old Bulldogs bowling through this one. Next, we have the Louisville Cardinals versus the number 1 ranked Alabama Crimson Tide. Alabama 7-1 in the SEC, 13-1 overall. Alabama is favored by 25.5 at home, covering, win, under on the 58. Next, we have the Navy Midshipmen out of the American Conference, 7-6 overall, 4-4 conference, versus the Mountain West Hawaii Rainbow Warriors, 3-9, 1-7 in conference. Navy's favored by 17, get them winning, covering, over on the 50. We have the 21st ranked University of Central Florida Knights versus the Connecticut Huskies. This is where I've talked about this video before, and some of you have seen it. I've done a realignment video, what I think NCAA should do and realign. This is kind of the prime example, because right now you have a committee that says, okay, these 4 teams make the playoffs. Well, you have to be part of the Power 5 in order to make the playoffs. But yet you have all these other teams, such as the American Conference, the Mountain West, Conference USA, on down the line, who 13-0, 8-0 in conference, beat everybody on their schedule, but yet they're not good enough to be in, even sniff the national championship. Central Florida is favored by 24. Got them winning, covering here, and under on the 72. So yeah, check out that video. Basically what that video is it takes everything that's now team-wise, the same 130 teams, reorganizes it more on area and stuff, have it set up where it's kind of like other sports where you have two conferences, divisions in those conferences, then your winners face off. So everything is settled on the field. You don't have it where you have a committee going, well, you're undefeated, you have 2 losses, but your 2 losses are better than your wins. To me, that's like a participation trophy. Just saying. You win, you lose, you lose. I don't care. As long as they're on your schedule, as long as the schedules are created, if I didn't do my version, not by the schools. You don't have a school calling up this, hey, you're an FCS team. We're going to do this. No. Watch that video, check it out. In week 1, all the FBS teams play an FCS team. Bam. It gives the FCS teams a chance to play the big boys. And it gives everybody kind of I don't say bye week, but a preseason game. So you might have 130 teams 1-0. But you might have some of those 0-1. So, alright. Two more big games left. The 8th ranked Miami Hurricanes versus the 25th ranked LSU Tigers. Another game like the Auburn-Washington game and the Notre Dame. How the hell did Notre Dame play? Wow, my brain today. Wow. It's going to be one of those days, right? You know what I mean? You know what I mean? Michigan, Notre Dame. Where this game could have some ramifications on the playoffs. Miami, the second best team in the ACC next to Clemson. 7-1 in conference last year, 10-3 overall. LSU, one of many good SEC teams. 6-2 in the conference, 9-4 overall. LSU, they got to play Georgia, they got to play Alabama. What if they beat Georgia and they beat Alabama? So you have a 1-loss Georgia, a 1-loss Alabama, maybe a 1-loss LSU. 3 SEC teams with 1 loss. Either Georgia or LSU would play Alabama in the conference finals. Conference championship game. Does the one that didn't play make the playoffs? That actually happened with Ohio State one year. So see, I mean, there's so many things that happen, especially in week 1 here. Miami's favored by 2.5 on the road. Wow, they're favored by 2.5 in LSU at night. Okay. I am taking the Tigers to win. They're at home. I'm giving them the 2.5. They cover under on the 48.5. And finally, on Monday Night Football, we have the 20th ranked Virginia Tech Hokies versus the 19th ranked Florida State Seminoles. ACC battle. This could be, again, playoff implications on the line in week 1. 2 could be top ACC teams. Probably the 3rd and 4th best ACC teams. Face off here. Florida State, favored by a touchdown at home. Got them winning. Got them covering. I'm taking under on the 58. All right, ladies and gentlemen, that will wrap up week 1 of the NCAA college football season. Here we are, late August, week 1. We have playoff implications on the line with some of these games. Some of these teams, it's going to be a win, no big deal, move on. Some of the teams are going to be fighting to get that win. A loss in week 1 could haunt you in playoffs. All right, as always, thanks for watching Robert Sports Show, and don't just have a great day. Have a spiffy day. Robert Sports Show, your YouTube leader in sports channel content.